opportunity. We have an opportunity to postpone, to thoroughly vet candidates to serve on the Board of Trustees of a very important institution in this community, one that suffered needlessly for the past year because of political goals. And now we have, again, a decision being made by one person, President Wayne Zyla, one person appointing the next Board of Trustees who will be a pivotal, possibly a very pivotal vote, and have a very important say in terms of what's going to happen and who's going to be the next permanent president of this college, of that college. And I hope for better tonight. I hope for something better going forward for this body, and I hope for better for this community. And so with that, I will be voting no tonight.
Mr. Eckel?
Thank you, Mr. President. I also rise to register a no vote on this for the reasons that have been stated, for the reasons that I haven't been able to question this candidate. And quite frankly, I wonder, should a trustee member be the person to put forward a candidate? Why can we not choose from a series of candidates? That is our job. That is our duty. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I won't rehash the level of disappointment that many of us on our side of the aisle are experiencing tonight as we try to move forward collaborating and embrace the new tenor that the county executive has spoken of. But one additional element of this that I think needs to be expressed is that conducting the process in this way isn't fair to the nominee. We should have an opportunity to discuss his qualifications with Mr. Bartolotta, and unfortunately many of us will feel inspired to vote no tonight because of the way that this was again shoved through, as we've seen in so many instances. And unfortunately the no vote is, and at least speaking for myself, has nothing to do with Mr. Bartolotta. It's the process that we continue to insist on from the majority party in this legislative body. And for that reason, although I believe that Mr. Bartolotta may very well be qualified, it would be so refreshing to be able to comfort myself with that rather than having to rely on a candidate thrust upon us. And so, objecting to that process, I find myself compelled to vote no.
Roll call, please.
Excuse me. Thank you very much, Mr. President. I was gratified and I was renewed to hear the county executive over the last several weeks express the fact that she was interested in bringing a new face, in fact, a new voice to this community with regards to the leadership that she and this majority caucus have brought to this community. And I clung to that exuberance, always, though, in the back of my mind, wondering how long it would be before her very words were dragged by the minority caucus back into the political mire. The focus of my remarks tonight are not going to be so much about the process, as they are still going to be about my exuberance and my positive attitude about this nominee. But first, I do feel compelled to speak at least a little bit about the comments that were foisted upon us in a very partisan way, I might add, by the members of the minority caucus. Certainly, I'm not an attorney, and I'm not going to, in any way, shape, or form, participate in a legal debate about state law with my minority leader, Mr. Bronson. I am certainly outgunned in that regard. But I do have a section of the charter that talks about the appointment privileges and duties and the powers of you, Mr. President, in your serving as our president. This is section C-4, President of the Legislature. Under powers and duties, the President shall have the following powers and duties, except as otherwise specified, set forth in this charter, to appoint members of standing boards and commissions pursuant to this charter, subject to the confirmation by the legislature. I will recall also as well during the debate about the public defender's appointment that legislator Andrews was so kind enough to remind me I was a racist over, that we spoke quite candidly about the fact that the public defender was the only appointment, the one and only appointment that this legislative body had the privilege to make. So there certainly is a precedence for that position. There is further precedent, Mr. President, of that position. I have a referral here dated October 3, 2006, where this austere body considered the reappointment of Lori A. Van Duzen to serve as trustee of the Monroe Community College. That was unanimously passed. This, of course, Mr. President, I will remind you, was unanimously passed without a public vetting or hearing or political sideshow of Ms. Van Duzen. I will also remind this austere body, or set as an example of precedence of the very same privileges and appointment powers of the President, to the resolution number 145 of 2006, where unanimously, Mr. President, after your appointment, we appointed Rich Guan to the board of Monroe Community College without a sideshow at any of our committees or a public dragging into the partisan mire in this community that this community no longer deserves, this county executive no longer desires, nor does this majority. So as I said earlier, I have exuberance, I have optimism, and I have confidence in this nominee. I welcome this new day in politics in Monroe County that's been ushered in by our county executive. And I am glad, or at least I was glad, Mr. President, that we were going to move on, that we were going to provide a board member that could participate completely in the design of the new selection process by the board of MCC going forward, instead of having to endure a month-long public vetting in the media by the minority who, in my opinion, if we appointed God himself to the committee, would object. I think that I remain optimistic about this appointment and this new attitude for several reasons. First of all, this was the first opportunity I had over a public appointment to communicate with the minority leader, Mr. Bronson, over this appointment. As soon, Mr. President, as this resume was in my hands, I called Legislator Bronson. I asked him for his email address, and I sent it directly to him. This is the first time. Legislator Bronson expressed some concerns about not having it sooner. I reminded him that this was the first time it certainly set a nice precedent. So I am enthusiastic about that. I'm also enthusiastic about this new face in county government for the very reason that instead of having to wait for another political vetting, more partisan politics in the selection of a interim president at MCC, that the board took into consideration a suggestion from SUNY, in fact, and appointed Mr. Tyree, whose deep experience in transitional presidencies at community college certainly has been well articulated in the media and spoken about by the articulate members of the MCC faculty and my austere members on the other side of the aisle as well. This gives me great confidence that there is a new face in this process. Mr. Bartolotta will be our new board member, and his experience speaks for itself. Mr. O'Brien suggested that this was a process that was unfair, or an appointment that was unfair to Mr. Bartolotta himself. I would submit that having to endure the kind of vetting that's intended for him over the next month is unfair for him. This is a man who has served as a director and past president of the Monroe Community College Foundation for over 15 years, Mr. President. He was a founding member, a charter member of that organization that was brought to the attention of the minority leader, in fact, by Mr. Flynn, the outgoing president of MCC. This is a gentleman who has a long history of leadership in this community. This is a candidate that meets all of the stipulations that have been set forth, or at least that we have been criticized for, the board has been criticized for, in the media and otherwise, going forward. He has no political connection to us. He doesn't have, he has experience with education. He certainly has experience at MCC. So I am encouraged and I am enthusiastic about this appointment. This is an example of good judgment by you, Mr. President. It's great leadership from our county executive, who is demonstrating a new face. Again, I knew it wouldn't take long for the minority caucus, who has absolutely nothing politically to gain by this process going smoothly, mind you.